On the cruise, you talked about source doesn't see, it doesn't have taste, touch, or sight, it feels. And that was really a mind-blowing thing for me, because I always felt like people were watching me, and I never understood that they were really only feeling me. And it actually was a really cool moment, because I realized for the first time that...
Before you go further, we want to stick something in, because it might change the direction of your question, your really good question. We just want to throw this in for you. We have said that, we do say that, and we do mean that. It is how it is, that it is your physical apparatus that has the translators of the vibration that gives you taste and touch and sight and sound and so forth. So without that physical apparatus, then those experiences are different from non-physical. But the satisfaction that you feel when you taste something that you like is felt by us.
Yes, that's the part I got for the first time.
So you could say that if it tastes good to you, it tastes even better to us. But it's not because of what's going on the tongue. It's a vibrational satisfaction that is deeper and richer than anything that your physical senses give you.
Yeah, and for the first time I realized it doesn't matter what we do, it matters how we feel about what we do. And that's how that came together for me for the first time.
And now, when you get out ahead of it by segment intending before you get there, can you understand the exponential ramifications of that? When you get some momentum going before you even get into that segment, when you get yourself tuned in and in the state of satisfaction before you meet up with that segment, we want to introduce this. We haven't talked about it here, and then we want to hear you completely. It applies completely to where you're going. As we said earlier, we've been talking about segment intending right from the beginning with Jerry and Esther. And Esther had an impression that what segment intending meant was, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to intend safety to the next place. And I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to intend open traffic, things like that, which we were in agreement with. That wasn't something that we weren't encouraging her to think. But her impression still was, I'm going to hook into the source energy and then I'm going to blast it into my future segment, and I'm going to get it ready for me. I'm going to change it so that when I get there, I'll like it. And not only will it change for me, it'll change for anybody else that goes anywhere I go. I'm fixing that segment. You all come along. I've cleared the way. That's kind of the way Esther was looking at it. Now she understands that what she's doing as she's segment intending, she's identifying and isolating and calibrating to this vibration of utter well-being. And sometimes she calls it clarity and love and fun. So she's accomplishing that in her being, and then she's walking that being into a segment where she will attract those things from that segment. She's not changing the segment, she's changed herself, because it's attraction, attraction, attraction. So ornery people aren't going to come to her, and people that are reckless drivers aren't going to come to her. What's a vibrational match to what she has identified? And like our friend helped us to clarify earlier, she doesn't just believe it, she knows it. She knows it. She's done it, she knows it, she feels it, she goes, and this segment is so sweet to her, and this segment is so sweet to her, and this segment is so rich. You see what we're getting at? And so?
So for that first time, I realized that the action isn't the important part, it's the feeling. And then you talked about, don't do anything that you don't think is appropriate. And I thought, oh, that seems judgmental. But then I realized, again, it's not a matter of whether somebody else thinks it's appropriate. The appropriateness of it is only important because it is how you feel about it again.
Yeah, you'll split your energy. Here's the statement that's a really easy one to get hold of, that is so easy to apply. Make a decision and line up with it. Make a decision and line up with it. Today we would say make a decision and segment intend it into place. Make a decision and then don't talk smack about it. Make a decision and line up with it. So there's a family reunion and you don't really want to go, but you feel like you should because your mother's going to be really mad at you if you don't show up. Make a decision and line up with it. So if you decide you're going to go, doesn't matter if you go or don't go, but if you decide to go, then make a list of all the reasons you're going. Don't go to please someone else. Satisfaction comes from one place and one place only, making a decision and lining up with it and moving in the direction of that decision. So don't do something because somebody else wants you to do it. You're just going through the motions and offering lip service, and it won't be fun for them either, or for you. But if you say, I'm going, and I'm going to like going, and I'm going to think about it until I find that vibrational resonance with it, and then you've lined up with it. Now you're taking yourself into this environment, a new you, into this environment where you're going to have a whole series of experiences like you've never had before. It's going to be a very unusual family reunion because they are going to find a person that they have not met before. And they're not going to be able to talk you back into your insecurities that you had since you got stuck in that little chair when you were 4 or whatever.
When you think about in the context of what we're just talking about, can you, from a vibrational standpoint, talk about the word responsibility? Because that's a conflicting word for me when I think about doing what I want to do sometimes. I just would like to hear you talk about responsibility.
Let's look more to its roots. Let's start with the idea of response. Response first. And then let's talk about the law of attraction. And then let's talk about connection and how in sync you are with your inner being. We've been talking about, so you decide to meditate and you quiet your mind. And if you quiet your mind, you stop thought. And if you stop thought, you stop resistant thought. And if you stop resistant thought, your vibration rises. And when your vibration rises, now you're in sync with source energy and your inner being. And now things will begin occurring to you. Thoughts will occur to you. Impulses will come to you.
So is it responsible to do that, or is it responsible to not just do
Wait just 1 second. You're being responsive to your vibration. Mm-hmm. So rather than responsibility, for just a little bit, we want to talk about what I'm responsive to. And what I'm responsive to in my human form is the vibration that I'm most matched to. If I've practiced my alignment with my inner being, then I'm most responsive to what my inner being knows. If I've been watching television and complaining about this and that and this and that, or if I'm in the middle of an uncomfortable relationship at work or at home or whatever, then that might be what's active in me, and I'm responsive to that. Our friend was talking about his father, who's responsive to all kinds of things because of the thoughts he's been thinking and the life he's been living. So now you want to take that responsiveness, which we want to call a law of attraction thing, and you want to make yourself responsible. So if you're going to be responsible, then you've got to be responsible to how you've tended to your vibration. We would call it your responsibility to feel good. You really owe it to yourself to feel good, because when you feel good, then good things come to you, and when you feel mad, they don't. And if you want to call it responsibility, that's just fine. But the reason it's tripping you up is because there are so many people around you who have not actively known about the law of attraction. They've not been thinking about inner being. They will say things like, let your conscience be your guide, or they will say things like, follow your gut instinct and things like that. People have been dabbling in this. All kinds of people have had connection and inspiration, and they get that. This is not the first conversation about any of this, but most people are living life by default, and most people are just responding to what they're giving their attention to. And so then there are those who decide they're going to lead someone, lead a child, or even lead a mate, or lead a group of people who are working for you, or lead a team. And their attitude about leadership often is by pointing out to you the things that will go wrong if you don't do this, and if you don't do this. If you don't do this, you're going to get fired, and if you don't do this, you're not going to amount to anything, and if you don't do this. And so most people have been pushing hard against what they don't want, and then disallowing what they do want, and so their idea of what comes to them is all disturbed. It's all distorted, because even in religion, they will say to you, if you keep these rules, and you do these things, and you don't do these things, then you will be rewarded. And then logical people keep those rules and don't feel all that rewarded. And then they see others around them not keeping the rules who seem to be thriving. And they say, what's going on? And then people say to them, oh, well, you can't tell while you're still here on earth. The reward comes after you die. And we are here to tell you, your guidance system is giving it to you now. What's happening in non-physical is what's happening here. When you don't feel good, you've pinched yourself off from it. And there isn't a reward. Your rewards are happening here. It's what alignment is. It's the emotion that you feel in any moment is what you're reaching for, you see. So getting back to the point that you were sort of kind of making is that people who want something from you will convince you that there's this set of rules that you need to follow. And rarely does that set of rules include do your best to feel good as much as you can. Usually the rule is, I'm going to need your sacrifice and your commitment, and I'm going to need you to do these things, and you need to put this first no matter what.
I don't think it's other people doing it to me. I think it's me doing it to myself.
Well, we think so too at this point, but we don't think you learned it from nobody.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I'm the one doing it, just to be clear.
But it's such a wonderful thing when you now know that. If you just leave here with this one understanding. We like that word, understanding. What's standing under? What's the basis beneath what you know? So if you just leave here with this one understanding that your inner being is you, and your inner being is the non-diluted, non-resistant version of you, and that your inner being is even what you want to call future because it hasn't manifested yet, but we want to call presence because it is a vibrational reality version of you. And that your inner being has a point of attraction, and so do you. And that your emotions equal that resonance or lack of it, that harmony or discord, that allowance or disallowance. And so when you feel negative emotion, Esther stops often, and when she's feeling some negative emotion about something, and she acknowledges, you guys don't feel this way about that, do you? And I know why. Thanks for reminding me. Her emotions remind her all day, every day. That's what they're for. It's guidance.
I said to my wife, I said, sometimes I let it get so bad it feels like mental illness, but I came up with a new word for it. I called it mental willness because of the stuff I'm sometimes willing to put up with. And that's that moment where you just stopped it is really important.
And if you don't stop it, it's all right. It'll get bigger, but then something will distract you, because at this point in what you've got going on, once you know these things, once you acknowledge that you are an extension of source energy, do you know that? And once you acknowledge that that source energy part of you is vividly aware and active in your life experience, do you know that? And once you understand that the things that you've asked for, your inner being is aware of and is attracting on your behalf. Do you know that? Is attracting on your behalf. Then there's only one question to ask yourself. Am I a cooperative component right now? And if you got negative emotion going on, the answer is no, not right now. It doesn't mean no, not ever. No, not right now. Not while I feel like this. And if you're frisky and feeling full of fun and you're loving life, then you're letting it in, you're letting it in, and you're letting it in. And before you know it, you start really noticing the difference. You can feel when you're in the flow and when you're not. And the most important thing that your inner beings want us to convey to you is that when you're not in the flow, it's okay. Because your negative emotion about yourself could only exist because your inner being isn't having any negative emotion about you. If your inner being were as mad at you as you are, you wouldn't feel mad. Doesn't that make sense? It's the fact that your inner being knows it all as well and you don't that makes you feel bad. It's that your inner being knows that you are wonderful and you don't that makes you feel bad. Sort of makes you appreciate that discord, doesn't it? Ooh, my inner being must really love me because I'm feeling real bad right now.